Last Wednesday night, on our Wednesday night special, I told you how the federal government would use climate change as the national emergency, which would give the president the kinds of powers that a president only gets when we are attacked on the homeland and are at war. This is coming, and I believe it is coming this fall. I'm always wrong in timing, but I don't think I'm too wrong on this. Inflation and gas prices currently being blamed on Putin, but soon the blame will be shifted to global warming. Now, the powers that the federal government will hand over to the president, he's already using the administration and the arm of his office as a weapon. We are already seeing changes to FEMA, to the SEC, to the FCC, to all of the agencies that are supposed to protect and defend the Constitution are now being used to protect and defend the agenda against climate change. These powers will include sedition, the power to silence people and to silence dissent. And you will see more of that tomorrow with the January 6th Thursday night must-see TV that nobody is interested in watching, except the extreme left. And they're doing everything they can to get America to watch because this is a setup. But let me go back to the war that we are now facing. And I don't mean the actual hot war with the military. What I mean is the war on climate change. I want to play Janet Yellen from yesterday. But to understand this, you need to understand the war on climate has become an all-agency war. So every arm of the government now under Joe Biden must make climate change the priority. So I want you to listen to what she said yesterday about gas prices. You know that gas prices are not controlled by Putin. If we had continued to be energy independent, as Trump had us, we would not have any of these problems right now. We would be making a ton of money. Our economy would be booming because we would be selling energy to the rest of the country. But we're not. So here's Janet Yellen yesterday. What is she saying about gas prices?
Given the global nature of these markets, it's virtually impossible for us to insulate ourselves from shocks like the ones that are occurring in Russia that move global oil prices. And look, over the medium term, the critical thing is that we become more dependent on the wind and the sun that are not subject to geopolitical.
We are looking now at moving towards wind and solar. That's the most important thing. And she's absolutely wrong and lying to you when she says we have no way to prepare against these global shocks. Yes, we do. Energy independent. We've already achieved it, and Biden dismantled it. Now, here's Debbie Stabenow yesterday on talking about the price of gas. Listen to this.
I do have to say, just on the issue of gas prices, after waiting for a long time to have enough chips in this country to finally get my electric vehicle, I got it and drove it from Michigan to here this last weekend and went by every single gas station and didn't matter how high it was. And so I'm looking forward to the opportunity for us to move to vehicles that aren't going to be dependent on the whims of the oil companies and the international market.
Okay, you don't have to worry about that. If you remained energy independent. By the way, if memory serves me right, Stabenow was a very big leader in the carbon market. Do you remember when we were talking about this in 2008 and 9, and with a carbon market where we were selling offsets? Barack Obama said, if my memory serves me right, this is a quote, that your gas prices would necessarily skyrocket. This is just another way through that same door to cripple our energy independence. Now, we have another thing going on. In Germany, the supermarkets in Germany put up notes on Tuesday warning customers that they are only allowed to purchase one critical product as supply chain problems hit the European continent. A Twitter user shared images of the notes next to the products like pasta and flour. Ukraine isn't able to export its wheat. This is because of the war. But what are we doing? How are we offsetting it? Are we helping our farmers? We also, fertilizer. I can count on one hand the farmers that I know that are using fertilizer this year. That will reduce the crops by about 20%. Just that one thing. Now, they're saying that we're going to have food shortages, not just because of Ukraine, but also fertilizer, sure. The drought and the fires, which are because of global warming. Another global warming emergency. By the way, KFC in Australia, it's having to replace lettuce. They're struggling with a lettuce shortage, and they're putting cabbage on their burgers. Let's see. There's also KFC, Queensland, chicken shortages now all across. The U.S. soaring food prices caused by disruption in global farming, energy costs, and the war in Ukraine have already started shifting American spending habits. The U.S. Agency for International Development, that's USAID, the chief of that is, see if this rings a bell, Samantha Power. Samantha Power is Cass Sunstein's wife. She is a radical. She is somebody that likes global engineering. She said, quote, "I hope food shortages will push farmers towards green energy." Global warming. In the meantime, Biden has now mandated that more ethanol is to be used for gasoline. Now, what does that mean? Well, we now need to make 250 million more gallons of renewable fuel. This is to bring our price of gas down. At the same time, Biden is saying we need to make more ethanol. The agency also denied 70 exemptions for small refineries, which had been granted the exemptions under President Trump. So they are trying, the EPA is saying, no, we're trying to bring gas prices down, but they're not. They're not doing everything they can. They are thwarting everything that we can do. In the meantime, what are they asking us to do? They're asking us now for lower gas prices to burn food, corn. Already, corn has skyrocketed. 30% higher corn prices, with other crops rising by 20%. So we are causing our own food shortages. Then I get this story from the New York Times. Are you still with me, following the emergency orders that are coming? As the Great Salt Lake dries up, Utah faces an environmental nuclear bomb, says the New York Times. They're talking about how the Great Salt Lake is drying up and how this is going to cause all kinds of problems. Even the ski resorts will suffer from this, but eventually it will have, poison air, arsenic in the air. Well, that sounds like an emergency, doesn't it? And it's all because of a record-breaking drought. Now, let me give you a couple of other things. And then I'm going to show you historically later today exactly where this comes from, how this has worked in the past, and it is exactly the game plan that this president is using. But let me give you this. DHS, Department of Homeland Security bulletin yesterday warned of a heightened threat environment. The Department of Homeland Security issued a bulletin Tuesday warning of a heightened threat environment over the next several months as they monitor both the risks of domestic terrorism and foreign adversaries looking to sow discord within the U.S. to promote acts of violence. The United States remains in a heightened threat environment, as noted in the previous bulletin, and several recent attacks have highlighted the dynamic and complex structure and nature of the threat environment. In the coming months, the DHS says we expect the threat environment to become more dynamic, as several high-profile events could be exploited to justify acts of violence against a range of possible targets. Now, this is weird, because we had yesterday Compass Care, a pro-life reproductive health organization that services patients in the Rochester and Buffalo area. It was firebombed by pro-abortion terrorists. Compass Care wrote in a blog post that its office was firebombed. The pregnancy center said that the windows in the reception room and the nurse's office were broken and fires were started. On the building was graffiti that read, "Jane was here." That is a radical pro-abortion terrorist group, Jane's Revenge, which took responsibility for the firebombing of a similar pro-life organization in Madison, Wisconsin, just last month. However, even though they have posted online a night of rage when the U.S. Supreme Court hands down its ruling in Dobbs versus Jackson, the Women's Health Organization that's Jane's Revenge, I guess. They have called for a night of revenge and have urged militant action. They have selected a time of 8 p.m. for actions nationwide to begin whenever the court hands down its decision. So, wait a minute. Maybe that's what they're talking about? No, that's not what they're talking about. In fact, New York's governor not only ignored the violence, but instead earmarked $35 million in taxpayer funds to increase security at abortion clinics. Then the legislature passed a bill investigating pro-life pregnancy centers precisely because they do not perform abortions. Are you seeing what's coming yet? Oh, one more story. Not to worry about emergencies. The Center for Disease and Prevention has updated its guidance last week for travelers wishing to protect themselves against monkeypox. They said, wear a mask. Wearing a mask can help protect you from many diseases, including monkeypox. Late Monday night, that recommendation was deleted. Why? The CDC said they removed the mask recommendation from monkeypox travel health notice because it caused confusion. Really? Is this possibly yet another health emergency?